we're live. Brandon, what are we?
Whatever you like. Brandon, Bran Flakes, B Flakes. Yeah.
You need to do a collab with the
Bran Flakes cereal.
Flakes, by the way.
I'm waiting for that. I'm truly waiting. That's like the most common like picture I get sent is someone who sees Bran Flakes cereal in like a grocery store and they're like, thinking of you. I'm like, thanks.
That would literally be the most perfect collab ever.
It's so funny because some people like don't get it. They're like, why do they call you Bran Flakes? I'm like the cereal? They're like, what?
Yeah, okay. Well,
I'm like, well, that one right over your head.
We're going to call them out and you should pay Brandon a fat bag for that. Well, it's great to have you on.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We met at a Amazon influencer dinner. I was the plus one on that evening. And that was a pretty fun dinner.
It was great food. We got a nice fat bag of goodies to bring home, which was amazing. Like some good ass products. Yeah, it was great.
So before we even get into that, quick tidbit story, something the world doesn't know about you from all that's out there. And
oh my goodness,
we're out there.
Yeah, we are out there. We are pretty much an open book. I feel like some things that people don't know about me is I have like a nerdy side. Like when I was little, like my hobbies were like playing Nintendo. Like I loved to play like Super Mario. Like I actually, for my birthday last year, just got a Nintendo Switch. I've been working on in therapy, having a hobby that is not at all involved in creating content. So like my non-content hobby is you can catch me playing Mario Kart or Super Mario World behind the scenes.
Love that. Wait, so what are we? Is it because we're deep into the content, like it consumes us 24/7?
It was getting to that point. Like that was like kind of my, I don't want to say New Year's resolution, but it kind of was. Like I was like, I want to create a better boundary between social media and Brandon because my brand is so rooted in Brandon. Like it's cool to like have a very authentic, real platform that's very genuine. And I feel like that's why my followers resonate with me, but it's also kind of a catch-22 because then like every time something happens, it's so hard not to share it. And I kind of blurred the lines between work-life balance because when like your work is based off of your life becomes your work. And then it's like, who am I off the internet?
Right.
So we're on a wellness journey. We started seeing a therapist in January. It's truly been like life-changing. So we're only 2 months in, but I need a lot of help. So I'm seeing her twice a week. She's figuring my shit out, which is great.
So is this the first time you've ever been in therapy?
It's my first time I've ever done therapy.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So twice a week?
Twice a week for right now. We're like getting good, so we might move down to like once a week, but right now we're still healing a lot.
Well, I think it's great to, and look, I'm going to give unsolicited advice, which is the most annoying thing ever, is just like, even when it gets great, that's when you got to keep staying in there because it's not, I think, a lot of my friends too, and honestly, I should take my own advice sometimes as well. I think on specifically on this subject is, you go to therapy when things are bad.
Yeah.
Things get better and then you're like, oh, I don't need it anymore. Yeah. And then you wait for things to get bad and then you get into the cycle.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that you're doing that.
Yeah. And like, I wasn't at like a low point at all. I just like thought it was a nice time to try because like you said, like I didn't want to wait for things to hit rock bottom and then like desperately need something. I was just like, this is what, looking back on 2023, this is what I want to improve upon. And like, I feel like my job was starting to consume me at the end of the year. And I don't want it to be like that. I don't want to resent my job. I love my job. I want to just like have some me time outside of it. So we're working on it.
Any other new hobbies you're looking to pick up?
That we are trying to figure out. So like my Nintendo Switch is what we call like my non-active, I guess you could call it creative hobby. My therapist is pushing me to get something more. She's like, maybe an adult coloring book or something so you're not like always staring at a screen.
Right.
But then my active hobby, like I love to walk. It's like the only thing I like to do alone too. Like if it was beautiful out every day, every single morning, I would wake up and walk like 5 miles just thinking, sometimes with music, sometimes with not, sometimes with friends, but trying to do it on my own. So that's something for me too.
Do you... Well, also, because I feel like a lot of your content is walking.
Yes.
Like when you probably get creative there too.
Yeah. So those I try to keep separate. Like I'll be like, okay, I want to take the, I'll have an idea for a video and I'll be like, let me just quickly walk outside because I don't feel like recording in my room and get like a walking video. But then when I'm like actually on my walk, I try to be present in that and not film. But if an idea comes to me, I'll be like, okay, really quickly, let me film this.
So I think when I was looking into your story, the thing that I was most interested by it. And I mean, you know, we're in similar content world around some of the similar people, and you came from a corporate background.
Yes.
And I think, in my opinion, what I've noticed is the people, I don't want to generalize, but the content creators or influencers, whatever you want to call it, that come from a corporate background, then get into what you're doing now, I always find are the most structured and grounded, because they also can have the appreciation of like, I know what it's like to have been in a place where I couldn't decide my own schedule and I couldn't decide everything what my day looked like. For you, do you feel more grateful having, or are you grateful that you had those experiences in corporate?
Yeah, I'm really grateful that I had those experiences from like a few different perspectives. Number one, I think it just like kept me grounded and keeps me relatable. Like like you said, can appreciate the schedule that I have and the job that I have so much more, because I remember when I worked in corporate, not necessarily working the hours I felt like working, going to meetings that I didn't necessarily feel like pertained to me, but I was obligated to go to because of my position. And just like, there was so much time when I was working corporate that I felt like I was wasting. Like I was like, this isn't productive, but you have calls with people and you're like, hey, I think I don't need to be on this. And they're like, no, you do. So it's really hard to kind of balance that. So now that I have my own schedule, I really, really do appreciate it. But to your point also on structure, like I really do try to typically like work 9 to 5 just to keep that structure. Like I try to usually film my videos during the day, have calls during 9 to 5, do any contracts negotiations between 9 to 5, emails 9 to 5. And then the only thing I like to do after from like 5 on is post the videos that I filmed and community manage, which is a shit ton of work, honestly. Like replying to comments. Sometimes if a video goes really well, you have to make another video on the spot to reply to the video. But typically I try to keep that structure of working. It was funny when I quit my 9 to 5 job, I approached the talent agency that I'm currently signed to, and they were like, so we love you. We love your stats. We like to give creators a month of working on their own, especially after they quit a 9 to 5, because there's some people who get the free schedule and they stop making content. They just like live their life. And I'm like, that's not going to be me. I'm like, I promise you, I'm going to use those 40 hours that I now have back into my week to like really develop this brand. And I called them a month later. I was like, I'm 30,000 followers up from the last time we talked. And they were like, yes, you are. We would like to sign you. And I was like, awesome.
Where are you signed?
I'm signed to Whaler Talent Agency. Yeah, they have clients from a talent perspective, and they also do branded campaigns. Okay. So I actually had a branded campaign with them in Amazon Prime 2 years ago. We went to South by Southwest, like actually sick. 2 years like from this date. And they talked to me after. They were like, we noticed you're not signed with anyone. And I was like, yeah, like I'm still working a 9 to 5. I don't really know what this like influencer stuff is about. And then a few months later, I was like, hey, is the offer still on the table if you want?
Wow. So when you, let's say even like, cause you went full-time content May 2022, is that correct? Mm-hmm. So like even 5 years ago, was it even on the table of like, this is something that I want to do or be?
I did not make my TikTok account until January 2021, which was like very late compared to the OGs of TikTok. Some days I'm like, I fumbled the bag. Like if I made it sooner, I would have probably like 1 million or 2 followers. But I also kind of love that my account like is on like kind of a steady growth period. Like I typically every year gain 200,000 followers. Like every month fluctuates between like 10 to 15,000. I feel like it gets like a chance for me to like really grow with my community and try to like make everyone feel seen. There's times where like I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going a little slow. And then other times where I'm like, oh my gosh, like this has been a really fast week. But that's like really cool to kind of, sure, would I love to have like an overnight success where it's like, boom, I wake up with 3 million followers? I guess, but I feel like it's nice to kind of take things slow and like process the changes that happen, because every time you like hit a new threshold, like different opportunities arise.
Do you measure your success based off of your follower count?
I think in the beginning I did, and I feel like, not to sound crass, but I feel like that kind of is like an amateur way of looking at it. Like the more followers you have, the more successful you have. When you really get in the business, it's all about engagement. So it's like, as long as your engagement looks good for your following, that's why people like micro influencers sometimes can make a killing, because it doesn't matter that they have 50,000 followers. They have 50,000 loyal ass followers.
Right.
I went to school for fashion and retail, like fashion business. And I always tell people, your followers are the amount of people that walk into your store every single day, but the people who actually buy are your engagement. So like, you can have 100,000 followers, you can have 100,000 people walk into your store. If only one person's buying your item, that's the only sale you've got the whole day. It doesn't matter how many people saw your stuff.
Right.
So I definitely think engagement is way stronger of an indicator than followers.
I completely agree. And I think, and my question is how to cultivate that engagement. Even I feel like at times I've struggled with that. And I think what I admire from people like you is you curate like such a, almost the outputs that you're putting out, so the content is so engageable. I think it's also that too, you know what I mean? It's like people, because I think a lot of people put out great content, but it's sometimes not as engageable as other content.
Yeah.
Do you, like, if someone were to ask you how to increase the engagement, not just from a numbers standpoint, but actual like the curation of the content, how would you approach that?
There's a lot of different strategies you can pick, and not necessarily is one better than the other. Like, some creators do the art of predictability, where the same video is the exact same format every single time, and the viewers feel comfort in that. They love knowing what's going to come next. I have series that incorporate that, but then I have off the rip videos that don't fall into any kind of series of mine. Something for me was honestly sharing about myself and being vulnerable and authentic, which, you know, there's a pro and a con. When you're vulnerable on the internet, you give a huge opportunity for you to, you know, connect with someone on the other side, but you also open up someone to hate you and, you know, give a personal attack that like could really cut deep. So it's not for everybody being vulnerable, but I think being vulnerable has been something that has always really helped connect me with an audience that feels like they know me and feels like they can root for me. And being vulnerable from everything, from a mental health perspective, from sharing details about friendships. At one point I was sharing details about my dating life, career life, fears, goals, dreams, every single thing. And then also finding a way beyond just making your own content, like responding to people that comment to you, responding to messages, responding to comments, you know, going on live and talking to people as if you're on FaceTime with them, I think really makes people feel like you're their best friend.
Right. What type of I guess, vulnerable, like you gave a couple categories there. Yeah. Did you notice that people responded the most to or the best to?
Yeah, I think after doing TikTok for about a year, I started to kind of realize the not so glamorous parts of it that I feel like no other creator was really highlighting. When you would talk to them one-on-one, they would tell you, but no one was highlighting it on social media, because everyone wants to live a little bit of a lie on social media. They want to be like, yeah, I'm an influencer. Yeah, I got it like that. But it's like, yeah, you do, but you're also not sharing the very real struggles that you're probably dealing with behind the scenes, of like the effects of the dopamine rushes when you get a really viral video and then your next one tanks, and you know what it's like to like walk in a grocery store that you used to always go to, but now you're taking a photo with someone who recognizes you. Like, it's all first world problems, so you have to be very delicate with how you describe and talk about it. But I found when I opened up about it in a way that was not complaining, but just educational almost, like, because the number one career people want to be right now in school is an influencer. Like, that's the number one job kids want to be.
Is that true?
Yeah. They like interviewed people in China. Wow. The number one job was astronaut. In America, the number one job is an influencer. Wow. So I feel like it's part of my like duty to be like, I show you guys every day how cool this job is, how fun the job is, how many sick opportunities I get. But I also want to tell you, like, it's not this curated image that everyone is showing you. It is that, but there is a whole other side to this of like being consistent, showing up every single day, having your social battery on all the time, because you need your social battery to just record videos. And then sometimes I have a day where I record videos and then I have to go to an event and talk to more people. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm exhausted. So I like to, when I found that when I started sharing that online, I was really surprised by the positive reactions. I call it my transparency series. And I also like to teach people what to do, because so many people are like, I want to do this, but I don't know how to get started. And there's a lot of people in this industry that come from extreme privilege. Like they had a lot of money or they had a lot of cool opportunities that made it easy for them to make content. I was not that. I was middle-class person, grew up in the suburbs of Philly, went to school in Philly, and had a 9 to 5. And I would get home from work every day and be like, this is not fulfilling. What can I do to find something that was fulfilling? And I found fulfillment in making videos. It started as a hobby that turned into a side hustle that became my full-time job. And if there's anything I can do to encourage people to, you know, follow that same path, if this is what they want, I want to be able to be a resource for them.
I think what also stood out to me about you when we first met and even a brief conversation is, and even now too, very much shines through, is like you're very almost like analytical, and you take it very seriously, which I will say, and it's not to shit on any influencers, is that like some don't, right? Yeah. And some it's like, I wake up at 1 o'clock. Like I'm lucky if I maybe do anything that day, like a video that day.
Yeah.
I go to Pilates and then, you know, and I think it's almost taken for granted. And my thing with those, it's not that those are bad people, and I have friends that are like them too.
Yeah.
But like as someone that loves those people as humans, I'm just like, look, you might not always be getting X amount of dollars for, you know, this brand post or this collab or this thing, right? And next week there's going to be a new it influencer and a new it person. Right. So I think it's really cool to see how you're thinking about it, because it's also from more of like a longevity perspective. And
definitely,
Serena and I talk about this all the time, because I mean I have the most amount of respect for her. Obviously I love her, she's my girlfriend, but like as a person too, and a content creator, objectively speaking, like she's like you, diligent about their work and on top of it, and always thinking about how can I elevate, how can I, you know, approach it from different angles, and what can I do to grow my brand. Yeah. So, you know, I think you, and there's others that are like you guys, but are in a very select class.
Yeah, work ethic is really important to me. I am the son of 2 small business owners. My parents both retired last year, but my dad owned a corner store, I guess bodega you would call it, and a deli, and he worked every single day except for Sunday for my whole upbringing. My mom eventually did the same thing. She worked at a children's thrift store. She loved it so much that she bought it and was in business for 19 years. And she also worked every single day. So
both retired now.
Yeah, both retired now. I just watched my parents, you know, really put everything into those businesses and stay consistent. My mom like loved it so much. She loved being a business owner. My dad was really good at it. I don't know how much he loved it, but he was very good at it. And I feel like that kind of was probably, I never realized probably why I never fit into the 9 to 5 mold, because my parents worked such non-traditional jobs. They were always working, but then there would be some days where they were their own boss. They would be off, and, you know, where they could make a schedule change. And I really loved that flexibility of kind of not only being able to pick out your schedule, but just the idea of being in control of it.
I agree. I think it's also interesting, you know, too, as this whole content creator industry continues to grow, is like, and I sometimes have to remind myself of this as well, is I think there's a negative connotation with corporate as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like I have friends, they love corporate.
Yeah.
And like, and there have been days in my life where I'm like, wow, it would be so nice to clock in and know that if I do XYZ at the end of the month, I'm going to get this check for this amount of money. And there's the stability aspect that's nice to it. For you, when you first, or I guess in your entire time being a full-time content creator, will you talk to me about some of perhaps, or have you had some of those moments where there's an inconsistency, and, or maybe like did you ever have a doubt that like, oh, maybe I should go back to corporate? It'd be so nice to like clock in and clock out and get my paycheck.
Yeah. So I'm very privileged to say from a financial standpoint, no. I was very logical when I quit my corporate job. I was not going to quit until my yearly salary was what I was making in brand deals minimum. Okay. And by April of 2022, those 4 months from January to April of 2022, I already made my yearly corporate salary in brand partnerships. And that was not even considering I was still getting a corporate paycheck every 2 weeks. I quit in April strategically for a reason. I got my bonus, my yearly bonus, and then I tapped out. And I said it, I came from the structure of, I'm going to give myself May, June, July, and August, the summer of 2022, to do this full time, just brand partnerships and creating. And if come September, I don't love it or I can't financially support myself, I'm going back to corporate. was the total opposite of that. When I came September, I had made double my yearly salary through corporate positions, and I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the job I was meant to do. Right. Like I'm working so hard at it. I'm growing a following. Since I quit my corporate job, I already got 80,000 new followers because I have so much more time. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And I called my mom right before I quit my job. It was after our Q2 meeting. We had just finished Q1 and they were like, all right, Brandon, like start planning out for Q2. And I was just like, I don't want to do this at all. I don't care. My heart is not in this. And my mom was like, listen, I don't know much about social media, Brandon, but I do know that you might not be as relevant in a year from now. And you don't want to look back and be like, wow, I had 1 year of my life where I could have done a really cool job. She was like, you have your master's degree. You've had great corporate jobs. I think you'll be able to get a corporate job in the future. This might not come again in the future, so strike while the iron's hot. And my mom, who's like extremely logical and extremely like a little bit like conservative when it comes to spending like money and stuff, she was like, no, like do it. I was like, I'm doing it. I called my manager right after and I was like, I'm out. So financially, no, I've never really had a doubt. I think where it comes into play is more the boundary side. So like something I miss about corporate 9 to 5 is like when I shut my laptop, I shut my laptop. Sure, would I have dreams occasionally about my job, or will I in the middle of dinner be like, fuck, I forgot to do this, I need to email that person tomorrow? Yeah, but it wasn't consuming like my job is now because my job is rooted in my life. So that part, you know, I remember the days when like you would go on Memorial Day and you would get 4 days off, and like that Thursday of Memorial Day weekend would feel so good. You're like driving down to the beach and you're like, I don't have to think about work for the next 4 days. When now I do that, I'm like, oh, this is a crucial week for work. Like I'm gonna make so much fun content, partying with my friends, doing funny things, making relatable stuff. Like those are the times now I work harder. So it's nice when the holidays come around, like that week of Christmas, because all the agencies are typically off, most of the brands are off. That's the 1 week where I kind of get that corporate vibe again of, oh, I'm kind of off too. But that's another great week to make content because so many people are on their phones. Right. So it's definitely weird. But from that avenue, I tell people, like, if I was to quit this job, I don't think it would be because of a lack of funds. It would just be because like mentally and emotionally it is taxing compared to my corporate job. I didn't find that as taxing in those mental health buckets as this one is. Are there little things that you've done to try to put more of a boundary? Yeah. So therapy has been very helpful. That was like a first huge step. Basically, like, what I'm trying to do is scale back the amount of time I'm putting into it. So let's say if I'm awake 15 hours of the day and 12 of them I'm working in some regard, we've got to baby steps, at least scale back to 10 hours. Okay. Like those 2 hours that I normally would have been on TikTok, spend one walking outside, spend one out to dinner with a friend, and that's out to dinner with your friend. You're not making a TikTok of you guys out to dinner. You're not recording what you're eating. You're being present in the moment. So little baby steps. So eventually, hopefully we can get that down to 8 hours, which is like a 9 to 5 structure, normal work day. And it's nice because I get to create my routine. So like in the mornings, like I have a nice morning routine. I'll go to the gym, I'll make breakfast, drink coffee. I've been trying to be better with journaling, all that wellness stuff. Are you taking cold showers? Yeah, I'm maybe about to start doing that too. Who knows? So yeah, I am trying to kind of balance that to get the boundary back. But it's hard, especially when like, not only are you so passionate about your job, but like you're low-key addicted to it too. Like you're addicted to that success. You're addicted to like that dopamine rush of the views going in and the content coming up and the follower count. Like it's hard. And it's so intense because like when you work a 9 to 5, I feel like the only people who are truly cognizant of your like results and success are like your immediate team members. But on social media, everyone can see your numbers. Everyone can see your views. Everyone can see your engagement. Yeah. Some people might not understand it the way that others can, but like everything is on the table for everyone to see, which just like escalates the pressure that much. So do you like, when you think of the next 10 years, right? Yeah. Do you think like it'll look similar to the way it does now? Or do you have any other potential things that you'd like to get into with some of the money you've made? And yeah, I hope not. I hope that I'm doing something different, not because I don't love what I'm doing, but I'm someone who likes to grow. Yeah. I'm obsessed with novelty. I love new experiences. I love meeting new people. I love trying new things and learning. And I can't learn if I'm doing the same thing that I already know how to do. So this year I'm like really trying to like take my talents and do something else. Like I love doing stuff like this, like podcasts. I started my own podcast, which has been really helpful. But I want to do more hosting gigs. Like I would love to work with a brand and do like a live show with them, like every 30 minutes, like, or every week we do a 30-minute segment where I talk about the new products, like get into more like personality TV kind of thing. I also like randomly in the shower thought of this like crazy idea for a show based off America's Next Top Model. And I was like, why don't we have an America's Next Top Influencer? It is like the start of the influencer industry. I made a TikTok about it. It at first like went like semi-viral, and then weirdly yesterday it went from like 450,000 views to 1 million. Sometimes that happens like 2 weeks later, it like retroactively goes viral. And I have a lot of ideas for that, like getting other creators involved, getting industry professionals like involved from like a judging perspective. I've never thought of myself as someone who could like potentially produce a show. I've always kind of seen myself as someone who's either a contestant or potentially hosts, but I would not mind, you know, flirting with the idea of producing a show either.
Have you had serious conversations about this concept?
So we have created a pitch deck for the show, and we are actually I pitched 4 ideas for 4 potential judges. 2 of them have reached out, and we have meetings with 2 of them coming up. So that's really all I can say, because now it kind of is getting serious, where it's like we're getting the NDAs out and things, you know. And I think people are like really, really, and rightfully so, cautious about it, because they're like, Brandon, like, why did you post that? Like someone can steal it. But the thing is, it's like, okay, well, what was the alternative? Reach out to a random person out of all the producers in America and be like, hey, listen to this. Like, social media now honestly is a great way. It's a great way to get copied, but it's also a great way to be seen. So I just felt like I had a platform. Why wouldn't I share my idea on the platform I created? And, you know, hopefully now if it does get copied, I have 1 million people who've already seen my video who are like, yo, that's Bran's idea. So we'll see what happens.
That's a very, I mean, A, I love that idea. B, I think there's so many different things that you can do with it.
Yeah.
You know,
I really would love to create a show that just shows the process of being an influencer. I want to do it with people who are not already influencers. Like that's something I'm really passionate about. Like people like me who genuinely started an account with zero, with no past experience, and just have a great personality that like could become a great internet personality. But I want them to get the experience of what it's like to like, you know, follow brand guidelines, make campaigns. And there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that people don't know that, you know, goes into making paid partnerships and doing the actual logistics of it. So I think it'll be fun for the world to see, because we also still have this like 2012 definition of an influencer when you think of like the bloggers back in like Instagram days who just went to Fashion Week and like felt like they came from this like immense place of privilege and didn't really work. People still view influencers like that, when like there's a lot of us now that are coming up through this TikTok generation that are genuine, real people that just created a platform based off of themselves and like that's rooted in who they are. And yeah, they are influencers, like they're getting paid to post ads and stuff, but they're also people. And I think that's what's so cool about the internet now is like we are all, it's almost like a response to that 2012 like Instagram, where like I personally don't want to see people who are aesthetic anymore. I want to see real life people who are like sharing about things that like I can learn, and like that to me is so much more entertaining than someone who lives this aspirational lifestyle that might look good on paper but you don't actually know anything about them.
Do you think that's why people resonate with your content?
I definitely think that's a part of it. Yeah, I try to be like very candid. Like even when people are like, why don't you move to like New York? Why don't you move to LA? I'm like, I don't want to. Like, sure. Would I have a ton of success living in New York City? Absolutely. I would go to events every single night. I would have a great group of influencer friends. There would be more opportunities that were at my fingertips that were more accessible. But I wouldn't be happy. I'm really happy with being in the area that I grew up in, where my family is, where my friends are, like where I have just been like raised, and it's just home for me. It's not to say I'll never move in the future. It's just not something I'm looking into right now. I feel like it's been so fun creating a brand that has Philly, my home, like kind of core values like in it. So I really do enjoy that.
Is it bad? I don't know if you walked in and you saw I have a Dallas Cowboys helmet. Are you an Eagles fan?
I am an Eagles fan. Go Birds. Jason Kelce just retired yesterday, which is very depressing.
Did you cry your eyes out?
I'm very upset, but I'm also so happy for him as like a father and family man that like he's had such a great career. So I'm looking at the glass half full and I'm like, I'm happy for you. He's a great dad. I think he's a great role model for all men. Yeah. So I'm excited, obviously sad for the Eagles, but he'll always be with us.
So when you come in, you take the train every time?
Yeah, I take the Amtrak.
And it takes how long?
If you get the express, an hour. I normally just take the regular Amtrak, hour and 20 minutes, sometimes hour and 15. It's really short. People get blown away who aren't from the East Coast. They're like, wait, like you fly into New York every week? I'm like, Philadelphia is closer to New York than it is to Pittsburgh. Yeah. Like it is so easy to get. I think some people used to call Philly like New York's trashy cousin, like, and I feel like that's very, very valid. It's so close. Yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, subways are much quicker, subways or trains are so much quicker than driving.
Oh,
too.
so much. Wait, if you drove, it would be the same price regardless because what you pay to take a train would be probably more for gas and parking in New York and then the stress of actually parking. So yeah, it's super nice. I don't have to think. I just hop on the train and come here. Sometimes I'll literally be here once. 1 week last month, 1 week in December, I was here twice in 1 week. This year has been slower. I've just been like traveling a little bit on my own for work. So this is actually the first time I'm in New York, I think, in 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So then you enjoy life just doing your thing in Philly. Like,
I do, yeah.
I think people don't, well, as a born and bred New Yorker, I think I'm at fault for this as well, where we think that this is the center of the universe and nobody could be happy in any other place other than New York.
Yeah.
But the reality is I'm sure that you have a little bit more space than the average person does here.
Yes.
And I'm sure mentally, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably a little bit nicer to like wind down and
100%. I feel like if I lived in New York, I would become that New York City influencer that only hangs out with other influencers, only goes to events at night, only goes to the ritzy clubs that you can walk into. And there's not a problem with that. Like those are most of my friends who live here. There's literally no issue with that. But how we've been talking about boundaries, the one boundary I've always been good at setting is like, I want to live as normal as a life as possible. I love that I live in Philly where none of my friends in my best close inner circle, like none of them are influencers. They all work 9 to 5s. You know, they're all like, my family is traditional. Like everybody just works a normal 9 to 5 job. It just feels like real life, where I feel like I have the type of brain that would get sucked into the whole sphere here. And like the last thing I ever want to do is become out of touch. And you know, like, you have to sacrifice some relatability along the way. Like when I quit my 9 to 5 job, I was like, okay, I know I'm not going to be as relatable as I was when I worked a 9 to 5 job. When I got into a relationship, I was like, I made so much good content about dating and being single. I know I'm not as relatable now that I'm in a happy, healthy relationship. But that doesn't mean you don't do it. You have to remember to put your personal benefits above the career and the image that you're creating online too.
I'm curious how you've dealt with, you know, take an example like dating, right? That was a big part of your content, then you're in a relationship. Like, then how do you pivot to then find new ways of generating content and then still being creative and not feel, and then I think, you know, there's some people that I know as well that it feels like it's part of their identity, especially in the content side. So it's a tough transition. Yeah,
no, it was really interesting at first when I like hard launched my boyfriend. I was like, oh no, is this going to be bad for the brand? Like, are people going to be like, ugh, we lost another single person who like made us feel better? But it kind of actually forces you to just get more creative, which for me always results in making better content. So it was around that time where I was like, okay, like I'm not going to talk about my dating stories anymore, but I, one, can still talk about any past experiences. 2, I can now talk about my current experience, like what it's like now being in a relationship, like differences. It's kind of just like changing your outlook on situations that then you can create new content out of. And I've been like really good with making series of things. So like I do like ranking videos on a pyramid. I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah, I've seen them.
And I'm just like, once you have that format, I tell anybody this who wants to become a content creator, like you can make 7 videos about one sentence in 7 different ways with 7 different formats. Like all you need is one idea. So it's like, if instead of making videos about like the best first dates to go on or the best first dates I've been on, I can now rank them on a pyramid or be like the best first dates, the best places to go on your second date. Like it's really organic stuff that once you kind of start thinking out of the box, it makes the content almost better and more niche.
Do you write down or have any place that you've written down these different strategies? I think you could, and I don't say this to everyone, like I think you could really teach on this.
Yeah. So that's kind of my TikTok transparency series. Like I try to make a video recently, like upwards of once a week, where I just, explain a social media strategy, explain like a TikTok strategy. And sometimes they go like super viral. Sometimes they don't do anything, sometimes they're middle of the road, but it's weird how I've now kind of built that segment of my audience. Like when I go on live, I'll see a lot of people who are like, oh my God, you give the best tips. And they'll go in the live and they'll ask me more tips and be like, what do I do here? What do I do there? It's like, if you ever want, honestly, hours worth of free social media consulting, my TikTok transparency series. And I get all the time, Brandon, why are you doing this for free? You could be a consultant. You could be a consultant. And maybe in the future, I will be, but I love the fact that I can make my money through brand partnerships and I can kind of keep this stuff that sure I could eventually teach and make money off of, but right now it feels really fun to like just do it for me.
Right.
I get a lot of validation out of helping people. It helps my mental health to kind of help others. So like I love when someone messages me and they're like, hey, I used your trick and my video got 3 million views. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I love to hear.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you and I were talking about I do some on the podcast consulting. I think in a weird way, I came from the just doing the podcast, never did, I'm not like a born and bred content creator, in more of like the influencer sense. So like, I think it's awesome when I sit down with people like you, cause I'm learning, like I feel like I'm a sponge too, but I also, I have a little bit of a business background. Like I see the value that you provide, which is, even to someone like myself who's in an adjacent kind place, I see so much value, like because I think people, when now there's so much shit, and you have like people that are just like selling the nonsense to make money as like whatever, right? And then I think there's also people that have really a lot of knowledge about something, and they also deserve to be rewarded financially for that. And then I think it's cool if it's sometimes like a mix of both, right? Which is something you could do as well.
And the monetary, like, my goal for that is to take kind of the skills that I have and what I've posted, and I would love to get paid, but rather from like a consulting perspective, like South by Southwest is this weekend. I would have loved to have an opportunity to speak on one of the creator panels there. I've been speaking at a lot of colleges. I would love to kind of elevate that and eventually get paid to speak, either continuously at universities or other big summits. I would love to speak to business executives, marketing agencies, and kind of, highlight strategies for them. I'm hoping that could come in the future. I've gotten paid twice to speak on TikTok panels, which has been amazing, a dream come true. I'm hoping more opportunities like that arise. So that's kind of where I hope, if that turns into something paid, I hope it comes in that regard.
Who's someone in the space that you've learned a lot from, maybe on a personal and direct level or indirectly?
Oh, that is a really interesting question. Well, I would say my career role model is Davis Burleson. He's incredible. He's a creator, but he's also a host. He has a Sirius XM show. He does his What's Poppin' Man on the Street show. And he just has this overwhelming kindness to him. I've met him in person, but it comes across in his videos. And whenever I'm in a meeting where I'm talking about like my professional growth, I'm always like, hey, Davis Burleson, he's like 6 years younger than me. And in my eyes, he's like 10 years ahead of me. Like, how do I get opportunities like that? And Davis is such a hard worker. So he's someone I really look up to. Anytime I get to see him, I'm like, you're a star. You're literally a star.
How old is he?
I think he's 21.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. So he's incredible. I don't know if you've met him. I know that.
I met him once.
Yeah. He's someone that I definitely look up to. In terms of someone who's taught me strategy, in the beginning of TikTok, I really did watch those videos of people who are like, here's the hooks that you need to do. Like, there's this guy, his name is Jackson's Tips.
Okay.
He has like a account dedicated to social media tips. He's been doing it for years, and I would watch his stuff and I would take notes. And now I feel like I kind of make similar content to him. And it was funny, one day in New York, I got out of the train station and I saw him and I was like, dude, you don't know me, but you were the reason I'm in New York right now. Like, I'm here for Fashion Week because I have a following and you helped me get that following. And he's like, that's really freaking cool to hear.
That's super cool. Yeah. I mean, I think it's so interesting too, because me personally, I kind of have two differing opinions on that completely contradict themselves on the content side. Is one, I think that the content creation economy is definitely going to continue to grow. That I think is like, that I feel very, very strongly about.
Yeah.
The one that I feel a little less strongly about, but something just feels weird, is that I feel like we also could be in a little bit of a bubble where like it's almost too good to be true in some ways. And like, I don't know, I just have some skepticism, which, you know, is probably fairly natural. For you, where do you think, you know, even if there is obviously growth in this content creator economy, like as somebody who's in it and also is looking out for, we're not even just, I asked you before about 10 years from now, but like we're talking about your life, right? Hopefully 60, 70, 80 years of beautiful, happy, healthy life. But like, you know, how do you maintain that longevity so that when then the next person that comes in that's also super talented and has great content, sticky, then you're also like, you've repositioned and you have more than just looking at 10 years. You have 20, 30, 40 years of a career as well.
Yeah, it's hard to totally say, but I think something that I found is just being honest on the internet and really like whatever experience you're going through, like don't shy away from living it. And if you're open to it, share what you can about it. Obviously, if you're going through something really challenging, really emotionally taxing that you don't feel comfortable sharing, don't share that. But if you can come out the other side and be like, here's how I got through it, that's how it's been helpful for me. Like, I've never woken up, saw another creator be successful and been like, okay, I'm not going to make a video today. I'm still going to make a video. I use other people's success as motivation. Like someone like Davis, I could literally say, well, I'm going to quit. Davis has all the opportunities I want. He's younger, he's cooler, he's skinnier, he's prettier. Why would I keep trying? Absolutely not. You have to say, well, I'm not Davis. He's got his opportunities. I can grow and I can be Brandon. And maybe there's times where Brandon and Davis can work together. And maybe there is times where only one of us will get picked for something. And, you know, it probably will go to him. He's, you know, has more experience. In some regard, he might be more talented. But then there might be a time where people are like, we kind of want someone older. We want someone a little more sharp tongue. We want someone funnier. You need to create the space for you and not let other people's success hinder your own growth. So I always say, and it's easier said than done. It really is. Like, comparison is the thief of joy. It's cliche, but it is true. But if you can use comparison to kind of switch it into inspiration and be like, I'm not going to compare that. I'm not going to compare myself to that person. I'm going to be inspired by that person. And I'm going to see the steps that they took and I'm going to try to mimic them in a way that feels authentic to me and hopefully come to the same conclusion that they did, which is my version of success.
No, I love that because I think that I've been using this term recently, doom scrolling. And like, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, and it's also not just for people that are not in content. I think it's for the people that are in content as well. Like, it's, and it's even almost worse maybe for them. Well, equally on both fronts, where you start comparing yourself to, like, you could easily, and that's why I love about what you just said, is you could easily look at Davis and be like, fuck. But no, you're like, okay, how can I learn from him? And what is he doing well? What are things that I can do that maybe I'm doing not necessarily better or worse, but just like, what are things that I think I can use my skills complemented with some of his strategy? Like, I think that approach, but that's more of the professional aspect that you have, right? I think it's probably hard for some people to do that.
Yeah.
How does somebody approach looking at something instead of saying, why not me? Instead, how can I learn from this person?
Yeah, that becomes like a little bit of psychological, honestly. I think, you know, not to sound harsh, but having a victim mindset doesn't help.
Yeah.
You know, if you are waking up every day and asking why me, try to rephrase the question to just be as simply as, why not me?
Yeah.
Like, why not? And most of the time, the answer is always, you're looking at it right in the mirror. It's you who is stopping yourself from getting there all the way. Now, of course, there's privileges in the world. There is, obviously there are more hurdles that some people will have to go through, unfortunately. That is what it is. If you come from a different socioeconomic background from someone, there's, privilege with skin color. All of that stuff is very real, and I'm not going to pretend that it's not. But I see myself as someone who could have let all of the things in my life hold me back. And instead I was like, I want to use all of those things to push me forward. And it wasn't really, it's not like it happened overnight. It's not like overnight I was like, okay, I'm going to be happy and I'm just going to go for it. I just started to try to do baby steps, which for me was just posting on the internet. I was like, sure, I know all of my friends are going to be annoyed when I'm like posting videos about us, and they're going to be like, why do we have to record this brand and you're not an influencer? Like, why are you acting like one? So why can't I act like one? If I act like one, I could eventually be one. Fake it till you make it, being delusional. You can say all you want about it, but it actually is true. So instead of being like, oh, why aren't I an influencer? Like, why do I have to work this 9-to-5 job? I would get home from that 9-to-5 job and be like, well, if I was an influencer, I would make a video right now. So I'm going to do it. And I think that that's just kind of the mindset that you need to have, where it's like, you can be upset about the things that have gone wrong, and you can obviously feel validated in that, not everyone comes from the same spot and life isn't equal, but you can also use that stuff as motivation to want to get ahead.
How much do you enjoy or think about like the business side of things, the actual content? Because I think I
do. It's weird. I do get excited during like business meetings when people are like, we see you like growing this brand like this %, like we see your content going like this. Like that stuff does excite me. I will say though, I'm not money motivated. I'm not money motivated at all. Like if you said, hey, you're going to make a quarter of what you're making right now next year, or you can go back to your corporate job, I would say, okay, I'll make a quarter of what I'm making next year. I would rather do something I love. And, obviously you need to survive. So as long as I can survive my bills, I would rather do this any other day because I'm more passionate about it. When I was in a corporate role, I was almost like getting gaslit into thinking I wasn't a hard worker. And it wasn't that I wasn't working hard. It's just my heart wasn't into it.
Right.
If my heart is in something, I will work the hardest you can possibly work. But if my heart's not into it, it's not because I'm not a hard worker. It's just because I don't love it. And that was what I was finding. I was like, I don't like working for other people. Like, I don't like that I can work so hard for 3 months at a time and still get paid the exact same salary versus if I slacked off for 3 months, I'm still getting paid the exact same salary.
Right.
I love this job because like the more I put into it, the more I see. Like I love seeing the input come into output, but I'm not money motivated. I'm definitely more like happiness and, creatively stimulated, motivated, and doing something that I love. The money's just a huge perk.
Are there people that you have, maybe not yet, but I'm sure you will, like kind of taken a mentorship role in, or that you feel like you've become a mentor to?
That I've become a mentor to? Not yet. I definitely feel like I have people that look up to me, but I haven't like gotten like super close. Like, I've had people reach out to me and been like, hey, like, can you consult me? And I've actually done it for free for a few people. Like, if you're going to take the time to email me something really nice and be like, I look forward to your content. It's been helping me a lot. I want to learn more. I'll give you 30 minutes of my time. Like, why not? That's a cool experience for me. If we have a call and then you blow up in 3 months, I can be like, wow, like that person blew up after a call. So why not? In terms of who I look up to and a mentor, I really do love my manager. He's just like a really great support system. But at the end of the day, he doesn't do TikTok. He doesn't do social media. So that's why I think it's nice to have friends in the influencer space. Like I love coming to New York and talking to people like Serena and seeing people who are doing this, but they're doing more with it. Like they're, launching their own show or doing their own games and like kind of creating a brand that's not just existent on social media. It's like they've got merchandise, they've got, a TV show, they've got something going on behind the works. That stuff is really cool for me to look up to. And I love when I go to these brand events and I'm not there just to take selfies and to take pictures. Like I love when I talk to someone like you and actually network. I think that's like such a business tactic that, going back to where we first started the conversation, I'm really glad I had that corporate experience because I worked in corporate and I would know like, oh, this is a really important meeting with a vendor. Like I want to get personal with them. Like I want to know about their family. Like networking and communicating is a really key skill to business. And if you can remember that this is fun, but this is also a business, you're going to go further.
What's the biggest misconception about the influencer world, in your opinion?
That is tough. The biggest misconception about the influencer world is that there's no hard work. And here's what I mean by that. I made a video about this verbatim. Being an influencer is not hard. Becoming an influencer is hard. And I think that is the misconception. People think they can wake up and be an influencer. Because if you think about you and me, we both have a TikTok and we both have an Instagram. So to the average person, what is Brandon doing differently than them? I post stories. They post stories. Like, why does Brandon get paid to post stories? But then I'm like, okay, have you posted a story 5 times a day, every single day for 3 months? Probably not. Have you woken up every single day and filmed videos and consistently, saw that your views were 200 to 400 and then didn't let that defeat you? Have you tried different formats of videos? Have you tried not just lip syncing and dancing? Have you tried actually talking? Have you tried talking for a minute? Have you tried talking for 5 minutes? Have you tried talking for 10 minutes? Have you edited a video? I will get so many calls from my friends who are like, how do you do this? Like, I'm trying to make a TikTok right now just for like, a funny video for my sister's bachelorette party and I don't even know how to edit it. I'm like, yeah, it's fucking hard. It's fucking hard. So I think the biggest misconception is that all influencers were born as an influencer, when very much so a lot of them were born into a place of privilege and already kind of a following wrapped into it. But no, there is a lot of people, and the more the world gets progressive and the more people like me are popping up on TikTok and becoming the modern day influencers, the more hard work you have to do it.
How much of because what you just described too is kind of like testing.
Yeah.
Like, will you describe what that testing process looks like to you?
Yeah, I always tell people, a lot of times people are really scared to start posting because they don't know what to post about. And I always say, like, that is the best part in the beginning of not having any followers. You could post about anything you want. You could literally post about what you're eating, what you're drinking, who you're hanging out with, who you're dating, your hobbies, your work, whatever you want. And then it's kind of sucks when things start to go viral, because then the app starts like low-key rewarding you for making videos about certain topics that have already gone viral, and your followers have come from those videos, so they want to see more of that. So in the beginning, it was really hard because my account was such a party account. Like, I was 24 years old. We had just gotten out of like the quarantine and I was going crazy and just making so much drinking and partying videos. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to be seen though as like just like that alcohol party guy. Like, I want to like also like make videos about like other things too. I have a lot more to my personality. I don't want to just be seen as that guy who gets drunk online. So that was kind of a challenging part for me, and being like, I remember one of my first podcasts, someone asked me, they were like, if you went sober right now, would you have a brand? And I was like, I want to think I could. So I was like, rather than getting to that point, like, I'm going to start working on that. And that's when I started making videos about TikTok and mental health, and, recreating videos where I could talk about drinking without actually drinking.
Right.
And that was really helpful for me. So yeah, the testing phase is like, in the beginning, post whatever you want. I say, if you want a structure, post 2 topics that are global. They relate to the masses. So healthcare, anything that like every single person deals with, dating, friendships, career, things that could relate to any human being from any walk of life, from any country. Global. Then pick one niche topic. So say you play tennis on the weekends. Start making videos about tennis. And you might find that those videos go more viral than your global videos. And then you might have a community of like tennis players. That could be how your account grows. Or you could have huge growth. And let's say you're talking about relationships. You could get like a platform of giving dating advice. But then people on the weekends also know you play tennis. So you can make videos about that too. So I always say pick one niche topic and 2 global topics. And when you're thinking about what to make videos about, I want you to think of 2 things. Number 1, what are you most passionate about? And number 2, what do you have the most knowledge on? When you think about things that you are most passionate about and have the most knowledge on, those are probably the things that you could talk about for hours on end.
Right.
And when you can talk about something for hours on end, you can make millions of videos about it, because you can make a video about one subject, like I said, 7 different ways in 1 week. And then the next week, make 7 different videos about it.
Do you think there's something to, I think you also have like a really great recipe when it comes to how you shoot it, where it feels so, because you're talking about authentic things.
Yeah.
And then you're doing it in an authentic way, or at least production wise you are, like where you're just walking, right?
Yeah.
or a lot of them, right? I'm generalizing. But I think that adds to it. Is that something that you recommend in general, or is it very specific to the content that you're speaking about?
Yeah, I think a lot of people too are like, oh, like I have to film a video today. Like I'm going to go put on a full face of makeup and put on a nice outfit. No, what I tell people is think about the most frequent times you're on your phone. Most of the people respond, they're like, oh, like when I'm in my bed, when I'm in my apartment. Right. So doesn't it feel nice when you're on your couch in a messy bun with glasses on, and the person that you're watching on your phone is also on their couch with a messy bun and glasses on? You already feel safer in that atmosphere of that video because that person looks like how you look right now. Right. So don't worry about how you look. In terms of storytelling, 5-paragraph essay. Remember it. You learned it in 3rd grade. You did it in SAT prep. Your intro paragraph thesis, that's your hook. In the first 3 seconds, just tell me exactly what we're about to hear.
Right.
And the more direct, the better, because our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. Open up. Don't tell me what you're getting ready for. Just tell me that. Start off with the first sentence that you would do after. And then your 3 supporting points. If you are a fantastic storyteller, like you are hilarious, you are entertaining, you could have 1,000 supporting points. I'll listen to every single one. But if you are trying to learn how to storytell and you kind of just want to get into it, pick 3 bullet points that you want to highlight in a video and talk about them. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the sauce of all the details. And then close it with a conclusion.
So that's almost how you story tell in short form content these days.
If you watch my walking videos, someone actually called me out on it once, and I was like, damn, you're figuring out the sauce. You're figuring out the recipe. They're like, you always do 3 things in your walking videos. Like, I'll always be like, let's say I'm making a video being like, I'm so tired of codependent relationships. There's my hook.
Okay.
Then I'll give 3 examples. You know those couples that will go to the bathroom together if they could? There's point 1. Point 2. And I feel bad because that's not a healthy relationship and I'm trying to be a good friend. Point 2. Point 3, your strongest point usually. But it is so annoying when you just want to go to brunch with your friend and they ask you if they can bring their boyfriend. Point 4. There's your 3. We've got our intro.
How are we taking it home?
How are we wrapping it home? Learn how to do things on your own, people. Your friends are your friends too. There's the conclusion.
Comment,
Boom.
share the
20 seconds. I bet if I post that right now, if I say exactly what I just did on that walking video, I bet that's going to get views. And I hate to say that because that sounds manipulative, but none of that isn't true. It's all things that I feel. It's not like I got that idea from somewhere else. Correct. I am sick of people who are in codependent relationships, and I am sick of my friends who won't do that. So I'm speaking from the heart, but I'm speaking in a way where I want the people at home to feel like, hey, Brandon sees me because I'm dealing with that too. And that's what makes it shareable. You know, you could share it from the perspective of sharing it on your story because you want everyone to hear it. You could share it with your friend that you are like, hey, look at this. He's talking just about Maddie. You know how Maddie won't hang out with us anymore? He's talking right about her. Like, it becomes shareable, it becomes watchable, and people feel seen that way.
But I think, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about, well, you said it better than I will, but like, it is not hard to be an influencer. It's hard to become an influencer, I think is what you said.
Yes.
So like, because somebody could easily argue with what you just said and be like, well, I'll just take my phone and do a front-facing cam and I'll say verbatim what you just said. Mm-hmm. But the reason that, but I think also the reason why you can do well is because you already did that hard part and you got to the point where you now A, have a platform, and B, I think it's like people want to see you now, which then also increases business-wise your stock tremendously as well, because anybody could technically put those words all together the same way you just did.
And I tell people that, like, most of my videos, I mean, they're obviously significantly better now than they were when I first started, but if you look back at the first few videos I posted, they were still pretty good quality videos with in terms of content, like of what was there, but I didn't have the followers to see it. So, you know, that's where you kind of have to kind of fall into the app and like, okay, you do have to use trending sounds here and there. You do still need to get the algorithm to reward you. So you have to post, you have to use trending sounds. You know, if there's a trending topic, talk about it. If there's a trending creator, talk about them. You know, that kind of helps you get front facing. But then at the end of the day, you've got to build your own brand.
Where do you, like when you're looking at trending sounds and top, where do you mostly look for all these things?
The For You page. Whenever I'm in a creative rut, I will take a step back and be like, okay, maybe I'm not going to create today because I don't know what to create. I'm going to dedicate actually 30 minutes of my time to just scroll on TikTok, which most people, I feel like that surprises them. Like, even though I'm I guess you could say professional TikToker, you probably know more trends and more things going on the TikTok FYP right now because I usually open the app, check my notifications, create my video, post it, check my notifications. Very like inconsistently am I actually watching other people create, but that's where I need to, you know, be better. When I have like a creative rut, I'm like, I need to see what other people are posting. What are other people talking about? What are other people going viral over? Like, how can I get inspiration and draw from them? And that will help me kind of get out of that rut.
Do you ever use any other tools like, I don't know, that would be to find some of those specific topics or sounds, or to get a better understanding of the algorithm as it's ever, because everybody always says the algorithm. Like, nobody knows
no
the fuck
really
the algorithm
knows what
is.
the algorithm is. You know, I still follow those accounts, those Jackson Tips accounts. I also try to like, when I'm stuck, if I'm not reviewing other people's page, I will like literally look over my content and I'll be like, okay, what's been doing really well?
Right.
Like the other day, I actually in therapy was kind of expressing frustration to my therapist about, you know, I was like, certain videos just aren't going viral anymore. And she's like, all right. She's like, tell me your 3 most viral videos ever. And I explained them to her. And she was like, okay, like, what do you think's the overarching theme in all 3 of those? And I was like, I think relatability. She goes, yeah, but go deeper than that. And I was like, she was like, I'm telling you what I'm hearing. She was like, it seems like your most viral videos are about friendship. And I was like, huh. She was like, so why don't you make more videos about friendship? It seems like your friends are your family and you are very connected with friendship. So you have a lot of knowledge on friendship that you could probably share on. And I listened to her and I made a video about friendship, same format, walking video. The next day, 10 million views. And I was like, holy shit. It really is that simple sometimes. What makes it complicated is your brain. But when you can just take yourself out of it for a second, it's like, oh, wow, it's actually a lot simpler than I was making it.
I think that's awesome. And something that I love about what you're saying is like, it's so easy to get emotional about views and likes. And you're like, oh.
Like it's your brand. And you feel like you're failing when your videos flop because it's like that's something you created that's not performing well.
But there's so many factors at play too.
It's not because it's not good content. There's so many different areas. Sure, it's might not be the content that your audience wants to see right now, and that's okay.
Right. So when it's all said and done, like way down the line, how do you want people to remember you and your brand?
Oh, wow. That's deep. I think I want to be known as someone who is different. Like someone who, you know, if they were to categorize all influencers, they would say, except Bran Flakez after. Like, I've never wanted to fit the mold. I've never like, that's never been I've always been born to stand out. And I think that was the thing growing up, I hated that the most about me. Like, I hated that it was always, everyone can come to the party except for Bran. Now I want it to be like, no one's invited except for Bran almost. No, I'm kidding. But like, I don't want to be seen as, you know, like we talked about, the typical creators who I feel like kind of get sucked into the consumerism side of it and just like are living a lie on social media and using social media as a way to make, you know, other people like want to aspire. I want people to feel connected to me online. I want people to feel like I'm seen. I want people to watch my videos from a place of comfort, not a place from jealousy. So I want them to be like, Brandon was a real one. Like he was a real one. Like we fucked with him.
Well, you are a real one.
Oh,
and
thank you.
and I really appreciate you coming on the show and trekking out to Brooklyn.
Oh, of course. Any day.
And you know, I'm so excited, genuinely so excited to see all of the next things, especially there seems like there's some things in the works that we can't talk about.
Yes.
But, I also think just, and I'm sure listeners and viewers will feel the same way too, is your approach to it is I think it's very rare to have somebody talk about, it's also such a new industry in the grand scheme of things.
It is.
And use different skills and tactics from other prior industries and business, and to see you have success with it and to continue to grow. You deserve it, and I'm so happy for you. So
thank you, Felix.
Keep being you, and you're always welcome back.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. You're the best.
Thanks, man.